So welcome back, everybody. Today we are joined by Paul, who is the Chief Experience Officer, and I think we can give him the award for the best sweater worn on the show so far. So welcome, Paul. Why don't we start by you telling just a little bit about yourself and Zally?
Cool. Yeah. So, Paul Wilshaw, I've kind of been at Zally since we kind of started. So with the CEO, Patrick Smith, and we've kind of gone through a massive growth, and we're now about 17 people. We're based in Manchester in the UK. So we are trying to kind of change things up, and we are a behavioral biometrics AI company. So pretty cool. We're doing some really cool things, and we're creating our own AI, not like a lot of AI companies that are using ChatGPT or some things like that. We're creating ours from scratch, which is a nice challenge. And my background is quite varied. I'm a UX product, have my own podcast in the past, and loads of things across marketing as well. And so you'll see me on TikTok as part of doing some silly dances and you name it. And then everything else in between as well. So yeah, so getting involved in absolutely everything.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And Paul, can you tell us, what does a behavioral experience company do?
Yeah, good question. So we look at the behavior. So of your device, your smartphone tracks loads of data from everything you do. So if you used a health app, you'll see kind of like all the activity on there, but all the little micro movements. So when you hold your phone, when you touch the screen, when you type on it, all those little interactions create a unique pattern that is unique to you and only you. And we've tested this with twins. We've tested it with people trying to mimic the same behavior on the device, and it is 99% accurate. And we can detect it's you. You have to train the model. You train the model, and it continuously evolves over time. So the cool thing about this is, unlike things like Face ID or touch fingerprints, they're point-in-time exercises. And I always use the analogy that my daughter kind of at the weekend, she gets my phone, puts it up to my face and runs off and does whatever she wants to do with it, like usually adult YouTube or things like that, play some games. But Face ID is nice and convenient, but there's loads of flaws in it. With our behavioral biometrics, you can identify that person and continue to identify them ongoing. So, for example, if you break your arm, it would learn over time and it'd know you'd broken your arm, adapt to it, and still let you into a system, and then kind of learn from that and then kind of adapt to it. And we've also done some tests as well. So this could be used in healthcare, could be used in cybersecurity, absolutely anywhere. And yeah, we've kind of even done some very early research on it could be used to spot Parkinson's and early stages of Alzheimer's, because as those diseases kind of like manifest, your behavior slightly changes that you'd never really notice, but we could pick up on and adapt on from there. So yeah, it's really cool tech.
So then who is typically your end customer for the product?
Well, absolutely everybody. This is one of our challenges.
Yeah.
We've kind of we've been targeting, because where we're based and my background, been targeting fintech, cybersecurity companies like that, and using it as a way for people to authenticate, as a backup authentication, to more securely than a password, more securely than Face ID, to then allow people into a system and then for confidence, it's that person. So, for example, if I was transferring you some money, we were both using Zally on both our ends, we definitely know you were transferring that money to the right person. So there wouldn't be an opportunity for a fraudster to come along and have a man-in-the-middle attack, or come in and kind of spoof your WhatsApp, give you a fake link, because it wasn't sending to the right person. So that's kind of our first kind of like target. But as I say, it's absolutely immense, and we can do anything we want. So it's good.
It sounds exciting. So then, for people listening, is it meant to replace a Face ID, or is it to be used in conjunction of something like that to make it more safe to use the phone?
So yeah, so the way we're doing it at the minute, so we're sitting above or below kind of passwords or any kind of like Face ID. So the way you can come into it is we use it as a augmentation of that system. So for example, Face ID, nice quick way to get people in. then with Zally, you can then continuously monitor and adapt and change that behavior so that you can even do things like hyper personalization. So depending on, we've even done tests on how you touch the screen can determine if you're happy, sad, excited. So then you could kind of like, rather than kind of like giving a rating of kind of like clothes shopping, you could go like, oh, I don't quite like that. You could know from kind of like how you're touching the screen that it could be not the item you want to buy. Really cool stuff.
I'm just thinking about the applications of something like that. It almost sounds as though you can predict, like this is an advertiser's dream, right? It almost sounds as though Zally can predict the mood that you're in, the type of person that you are, and then put the things that you're most likely to buy in that exact moment in front of you. That's like the dream, isn't it?
It's like the dream. It's like the dream. Yeah. So we could do that. It's more kind of probably kind of, I would say that's a little too far, but we're probably kind of going to do more kind of like the metrics of liking stuff or not liking stuff. But yeah, we're not crystal ball. We're not kind of like predicting kind of like the future of things. But what we could do is learn your behavior over multiple kind of interactions and then know what products to serve you in a better way. So my frustrations is kind of like being in UX, and it's kind of like that whole journey, the amount of stuff you have to go through, especially kind of like food shopping, is really laborious doing it on the web because it's just so much stuff. You kind of have to look through everything. You have to scroll through loads of things. Whereas our behavioral AI could then kind of pinpoint and go like, oh, actually, you kind of need this meal, you kind of need these kind of ingredients, and point you to the right things or a selection of things rather than kind of predicting kind of like what you're going to eat tomorrow night.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what have been some of the most surprising things that you've learned in this behavioral science category, which is a personal interest of mine?
Yeah. I think well, loads of interesting things. So just the accuracy of kind of like prediction is kind of been outstanding. So just to kind of know that it's a totally different person that's using the device just through those journeys is insane, really. And just to know that kind of off the kind of just by the way you're holding the device, and then you can hand over the device to somebody else and it knows it's not you kind of within like seconds or less than seconds. It depends on kind of what you're doing and kind of how you're interacting with it. But yeah, it's just been kind of like that, just to know and patterns it can do and find out. And like even the happiness, sadness, and excitingness is just kind of like, and we're finding new things all the time. Yeah, it's been a real journey of discovery. And then we're tweaking it as well. So we've got some nice little user experience things. So like one customer can change the sensitivity of the model as well. So if they want it high security, they can have it super high. If they want it a low entry to barrier, they can have it low. And you can change that as well throughout the journey. So for example, when you come onto a website, like e-commerce especially, you probably don't want it that high. But when you come to checkout and have some personal information, that's probably where you want to be more certain it's a real person, not an AI, and the right person coming into the checkout to make that payment. Okay. So just doing all those things. Yeah. So finding out all that and then doing lots of market research as well to find the real niche kind of like well, it's not niche because it's everywhere, but they kind of like that what people are actually caring about and what they really want to say and what matters to them as well.
Has there been something that has surprised you the most where you thought it was going to be this and then you actually find that the data points to something in the complete opposite direction?
Yeah, I think everything has been. I think the data kind of like just kind of, we thought that mimicking somebody's behavior and just kind of we thought we could con the machine and just kind of like just copying it exactly. Somebody sitting in exactly the same chair, doing exactly the same timings of that interaction. We thought, this is going to fool it. but it just surprised us at how wildly different people touch and hold their devices, and how they carry them, how they interact with them is widely different. Yeah.
I can honestly say, Paul, that I have never thought about the way that I hold my device versus a friend of mine or my
Yeah,
girlfriend
yeah.
holds hers. That's really fascinating to think about.
Definitely, yeah.
So then,
Yeah.
what do you think have been some of the biggest challenges that you might have faced building Zally?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is no one's really done it before, and it's not easy. So there's been a few kind of people who've done kind of like similar things, and like in gaming, especially kind of like in esports, where they're trying to track that it's not human or using aimbot or things like that. But it's kind of a low level, more algorithmic kind of detection, or do you look at patterns or anti-patterns where we're using actual machine learning to find out those patterns and build those models on kind of how you interact. And I think it's that's the challenge. And kind of we've gone through several pivots and kind of journeys that originally we started off on the web. We were very focused on e-commerce because we thought that was kind of like a really big market, which it probably will be in the future. But, then we pivoted then to being a bit more kind of cybersecurity and AI and kind of spotting bad actors on there. And then we're just kind of like just learning from those, getting market research out there, kind of interacting with some of those early adopters as well, and kind of just to see kind of what the real uses are. And some people have really surprised us and kind of gone like, oh, this would be a really cool idea. Well, we never thought about that. We never thought about implementing it that way. And people are going like, oh yeah, this would be really cool. So yeah, it's always surprising.
Nice. These customers, these clients of yours, they sound pretty broad, and it started e-commerce. It's sort of pivoted to more cybersecurity style things. Like how are they finding out about you? How are you acquiring these clients?
Yeah, causing lots of noise. So, if you look at our social media, so we've kind of been very proactive, kind of talking to people, getting out there, getting into the social scene, and just kind of interacting with, and even creating our own events, and kind of like getting the message out there. We had a series called Flip, where we had investors, and we flipped the script. So investors pitched to loads of startups. So we got a real idea of kind of what investors are looking for, where to pitch them at, and what stage to pitch them at. And then talking to a lot of other startups in the ecosystem, and just growing out that ecosystem, that community, and then doing some like really cool, crazy things like having pink megaphones on social media and flamingo hats, and just being that kind of very different brand, especially in kind of like the space we're in, that, as you can tell by my jumper, it's that we're bright pink. We're kind of like always kind of like want to be different and want to challenge that norm. And that's really helped us to kind of stand us apart from all those other brands and all those other startups.
Okay. And are you finding that when you do connect with potential customers, that there's like a long education process, or do they get it immediately?
I think most people get it immediately, and they kind of go like, "This is amazing," and I'm kind of like, "Why has nobody come up with it before?" Yeah, and they just then come up with loads of use cases for us that we just, as I said before, we just never thought about. That's really cool. And then there are some customers, they kind of like need kind of like, why do this differently? And obviously I'm a big believer on nudge behavior, and you can't just kind of like, we couldn't rip out passwords tomorrow and then have no passwords on the internet. I think people would freak out and run around like headless chickens. So just kind of like nudging people to that kind of where we want to be, and having no passwords, having kind of that seamless authentication is kind of where we want to kind of sit. But, where people have spent millions and millions investing in this security, then it's a slightly kind of like, oh, well, we could help you, we could augment this, we could make this better, we could add to this, rather than kind of like going like, yeah, rip it all out and replace with us. So it's those kind of like little baby steps, I think. And it depends. It varies from client to client.
Okay, got it. And so what are some big goals maybe for this year then with those clients or with Zally in general?
Yeah, world dominations. So no, we're heading out to Silicon Valley in April. So we are going. We've been invited out to Silicon Valley to kind of pitch and present ourselves to loads of firms and investment firms out there. So that'll be kind of big. And then we want to get into the States. That'll be one of our big markets. And then just kind of building up the momentum we've already built, and then just making our models quicker, faster, getting more data into there, and then just kind of seeing where that expansion goes, and having quite a fluid and nice kind of organic growth, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. And one of my favorite questions to ask, Paul, because I always surprised by the answers that I get, right? It is
Yeah.
let's say that you had a magic wand that you could wave over one big problem with Zally. What would that big problem be? And why would you solve it? And you could solve it just like with a click of your fingers and it would be solved. Abracadabra.
Yeah. I think any kind of artificial intelligence, when you're building your own, it's data. Just getting the amount of data that you need to build up big models and have enough data to kind of back it up with. Just if I could instantly click my fingers and solve that one, I think that would be kind of like my first go-to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. You've been going since 2023, is that right?
Yeah, well, 22, and then we kind of went through an incubator, and then 23, we kind of started ramping things up.
Okay. So what would you do if you could go back to the beginning and you could change a few things?
Good question. Probably, yeah. I think just refinement, and I think knowledge. And yeah, I think if we've got that 2 years of learning and knowledge, we could have shortened some gaps. But I think without that 2 years of learning and knowledge, we wouldn't be where we are now. So it's a balance, isn't it? So I think if we could kind of like go like, oh, do you know all this stuff's going to happen? Then we'd definitely kind of like fit into that. And I think just kind of like just where we are now, protecting for scale and growing that kind of demand up is, if we'd kind of just done that right at the beginning, then that would be nice. But then we wouldn't have found out all the cool stuff along the way. So yeah, it's a balance.
Right.
No regrets.
Good. So then finally, Paul, like AI is such a hot button topic. Everybody's talking about AI. Everyone's got some AI strategy in their business. And it seems like every week almost there's some development. We just had DeepSeek not long ago, and now that's old news. Where do you see the industry going, and what do you think Zally might look like in the future?
Yeah, well, I think it's that big behavior, kind of the more data we get, the more we can understand about people, the more clever and really useful stuff we can kind of then adapt and do. Just finding out those use cases, I think just kind of like, if someone comes to us kind of tomorrow and comes later, this is a really cool idea. We can like, yeah, let's do it. And just running those experiments and then fitting them into kind of what we could sell, what we can then productionize, and what we could roll out to customers. I think just having that kind of like balance between the two is kind of a really good roadmap.
Perfect. Well, look, Paul, I really appreciate the time today and the insights and explaining Zally. I think it sounds like I've never heard anything like this before. And when you say it out loud, it makes a lot of sense. And so I encourage everybody watching like to take note the next time you pick up your device. How do you use it, or watch other people use it? I'm definitely going to be doing that the next time. But look, if people want to see a little bit more about Zally and they want to connect with you, like where can they go? How can they connect?
Zally.com is our website, and then find us on social media, Zally HQ. You can see all the crazy culture and TikTok dances we do, and then reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. So and then find us on LinkedIn. We're doing like a bit more serious stuff from there. So it's good.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Paul. I'll make sure to leave all the links in the description. But thank you again for your time and sharing everything today. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you in the next episode.
And thanks for having me. Pleasure.